Welcome. The next presentation will be from Cat in the Hat Comes Back, Team 10273, and their session will be on great presentations. Take it away.
Thank you. Next slide, please.
So if you like our presentation, please feel free to check out all our internet pages and to email us if you have any questions.
And what we're going to be covering in this presentation are formats of presentation sessions, uses of displays, time management techniques, practice, tips and tricks, and then we'll open up the floor for discussion.
Here are some ideas of topics to cover in your presentation. Robot, outreach, and programming. And also another good thing to do is what differentiates your team from the rest of the teams. Something such as cool design, outreach, programming, or something unique that you have learned.
So first on our list is, oh, sorry.
You can go.
All right, thank you. Is format of presentation session. First, you'd go into the room and try to quickly get ready for the presentation. So you'll have 5 minutes of the team presenting without the judges asking questions about your team and your robot. Judges will cut you off, however, after those 5 minutes, and then there will be 10 minutes of Q&A with the judges. And after that is done, thank the judges and quickly and quietly leave the room. Next, please. The use of an MC is it's a pretty good thing to use. So an MC would be somebody with good charisma, which can add to your team image. And some of the advantages are it'll feel more organized. They can introduce the team. They can transition between team members, and they can fill in pauses when someone else is stumped on a question or something. The only disadvantage, however, is that transitions will take a little bit of time.
So one thing you want to make sure to do is the judges like to see everyone on the team give a little bit of information, especially having people that did things talk about what they did. Members are more confident when they do this, and it's an easier way to split up information.
So use displays. So this is something that we do. We always do displays. Visuals are good because they can show a lot of information. They can help you remember what needs to be talked about, and they can show extra information that you can't talk about within the 5 minutes. So for the formatting, make sure you keep it simple and you use big enough font to be readable for the judges. The only thing is that it can be difficult to move and it takes extra time to set up.
So another thing that you can do in the presentation is the use of a robot for demoing for the judges. Although in having it move or shoot could have some outcomes that might not be preferred. So we say everything can go wrong, will go wrong. So be ready if it will not work. It can take up a lot of time, and so a way around this is that you can manually move an arm or intake or something innovative. You could also use a video on a tablet, but tablets might not work all the time. It's like they might, yeah. Next slide, please.
Time management techniques. So you can introduce the team and you can do individual introductions. How much of the 5 minutes will it take up? So I want to do everybody up front. Each person does their introduction as they talk. You need to figure out how much info to give. You could do name, age or grade, years in first, or role on the team. Or you can just plan on doing no introductions.
So some more time management techniques or questions are, how do I present everything in 5 minutes? The short answer is that you probably won't get everything in. So try to keep introductions short. Short transitions between people are also good. Be concise, don't ramble on because that eats away at your time. Give teasers to the judges to ask more questions later about something that might not be able to have time to talk about in those 5 minutes. And then use that Q&A time to cover what you can't cover in those 5 minutes. And displays are very good at conveying more information so that you don't have to talk about those in the 5 minutes.
So here's an example of a teaser that we did last year. So we had one of our main programmers. He was near the end of the 5 minutes. So we had him say something like, well, this is the end of the time that we have for our presentation, but if you ask me questions afterwards, I can answer them. That's something you could do.
And so,
So,
continue.
sorry. Yeah. The judges will ask questions, so be prepared for these. Answer the questions quickly and concisely. And once again, try to sneak in as much extra content to inform the judges.
So more would be try to throw questions to another teammate that might have more experience in that area or might not have talked about stuff. The MC can speak up and give these questions to the person in charge of that area. After answering that question, you can transition to another topic not yet covered and hand off to that person. It's also a good way to get someone who is shy or hasn't had the time yet to share their information.
Practice, practice, practice. So you want to make sure that you practice your presentation a lot, and it is very vital. It's good to have mentors, parents, and coaches listen to your presentation, and then they ask questions. And then it's good because then they'll ask questions that you won't anticipate, so you'll know how to answer them when you're actually doing your presentation in front of the judges. With virtual judging, you can now use remote people for realistic practice.
So for distractions, make sure to turn off your phone and have everyone else in the room turn off their phones. Don't be looking out the window. Try to focus on the judges and so you can talk to them more easily.
And some tips and tricks or what works well with like our team, use keywords from the award description or the game manual. So like if you want to get something in the design award, you could use, instead of meeting with someone, we had a design review or innovative design, and we want to inspire other teams. So we're going to have a robot in 2 weeks. It's going to be virtual, however, and it's going to take place on September 26th. Each team will have about 3 to 4 matches. There will be an elimination round at the end. It will be streamed on Twitch, and you can contact us to sign up. So now we open up the floor to any questions that you guys might have.
Ben Fishy asks, how much info is too much?
That's a good question. So how much info is too much? So that would probably be like, it might take up like a lot of time in the Q&A stuff. So probably like just give like the straight up answer and then try to leave like some of the detail probably so that they will come over and like ask you more about it after the judging presentation.
Another person asks, how do you decide who will be your team's MC?
Try to find someone
yeah.
who is naturally talkative and who is able to make it more conversational with the judges, which kind of loosens up everyone else and makes talking a whole lot easier.
Mm-hmm. And then like, yeah, basically adding charisma to the presentation and stuff. So again, like an icebreaker.
Another question that came in is, what are some common questions that judges ask that you think teams should prepare to answer?
One of them that we usually get a lot is, what is the hardest thing to build on your robot, or what was the hardest part of your year? So how do you prepare about that one?
Mm-hmm. And then another one would be like, how did your team come to a conclusion in like programming, and who resolved that issue would be probably another one as well.
Yeah.
Another great question is you said use a display in judging. Can you talk about that some more?
So like what? Like what kind of display it would be or so, or what?
Probably.
So yeah, so last year and the years before we used I'm forgetting like what they're called, but they're the stand-up boards that you just put onto stands, and then we put those by our team and stuff, so that when we're setting up and getting into the room, the judges can look at those and look at that info while that's happening.
So one of the awards we had where we did a bunch of our outreach and different events that we did across the board. And another one, so we had two, was about designs and our robot.
Mm-hmm. And then if we had like any conflicts in the design of the robot or how programming and stuff would go, we have in our team captains of sections. So there would be a programming captain, design captain, and then we'll have a notebook captain, basically to say, this is probably what's going to be the better choice out of all of these, and this is what we're going to do. Of course, we leave it up for a question for the whole team, but the captain has the last say in that.
Can you give an example of how you would throw it to another team member, or why you would?
So one thing we did last year was one of our main people who did engineering notebook was outside of the 5 minutes we had decided. And so they'd ask us a question, say about like design the robot. And after we'd say that, we'd say something like, and you can find this in our engineering notebook. And speaking of our engineering notebook, we haven't talked to you about it yet. So here's Sarah to talk about it.
And so we do this also to get like extra information out that we might not be able to in the time that is given to us.
Another question is, do you have the same MC for the whole season and every year?
So last year we did have the same MC for the entire year. So that could change, or like if they didn't want to do it anymore, or somebody might be wanting to like try it out, get used to it or something. So either one could work, but for our team, we've mainly been using just one.
And another one that came in is, how do you practice your presentation before the tournament? Do you recommend teams present to professionals to get feedback before tournaments?
So that's a good question. And we do say that you should probably like present on what your team is doing and stuff to professionals and stuff, because then you'll get outside questions and stuff. So like people that might not have heard about it or know just a little bit about it. And so what we do before we go into judging for presentation and stuff, so we would judge, well, we'd run through our presentation at our meeting place and then have the parents, judges, well, not judges, but coaches ask us questions and stuff. And that's how we get some of the common questions out of the way and stuff. So like we know how to do it. And at the tournament, we just find a quiet place there and then we run through it again.
You can also practice separately with your own parts.
Mm-hmm.
Another question is, how early did you start to work on your presentation? And maybe how early should you start to work on your presentation?
So I think for our team, we started about 2 to a month before the actual I'm forgetting, but tournament. But I think it should be enough time so that your team is just fluent in the presentation and stuff. So yeah, so like they wouldn't be rambling on or forgetting their lines or any of that.
What do you think was the toughest question that you had a judge ask you guys during a session?
I think it would be like if we could, I'm not exactly sure, but it might have been something like if there was something that we wanted to improve or we didn't have time to yet accomplish it, like what would you do? I think that our team might have been like the hardest question for us, I think.
Yeah.
So how do you think remote judging will affect doing presentations?
That's a good question. I don't exactly know the question answer for that. It will be different, but in a way, it might still be the same. So you might not be able to present your boards and stuff that have extra information and stuff. So you might want to like get in the presentation all the key aspects that you want the judges to remember your team by.
I can imagine that would be at least a little bit harder because if someone asks a question and two people speak up, then there's also that sort of lag with Zoom or whatever you're using. Then it's confusing, but it'll definitely be different.
Yeah, and also figuring out presenting that extra information, what format you want to do it in, and how you're going to, if you're going to be doing it live like Zoom and having a PowerPoint behind it, or whatever other way you care to do it.
Another question is, what is the funniest thing that ever happened in a judging room?
Mhm. I think that would be when we had, this was a couple of years back, but it was when we were showing how our robot got the balls up into the hoops and stuff for one of the past seasons and stuff. So when we got the robot to fire the ball, it actually went over and across the room and stuff.
So this one is ties into engineering notebook a little bit. How do you pick which pages you flag in your engineering notebook? And what do you think is the most important to call a judge's attention to? And do you reference these flags during your presentation or just Q&A?
So the most important thing that you might want to get the judges to notice would probably be which award you're gearing for and stuff. So you might want to like sneak in extra information about that area of your expertise and stuff. Like if you have a good design and stuff, there's more of this that we can't get to in our presentation that we'd love to show you in our engineering notebook and stuff.
And we don't, so what we do in our presentation is usually when you're done talking, you say, and you can learn more about this in our engineering notebook after you talk about specific topics, and they look there. So we don't usually talk, like say you should look here, but.
Do you open the notebook to that particular page?
Yes, we do. And then we show them the area that we want on that page.
I think we've answered all the questions. Thank you so much for doing a great job on great presentations. We all learned a lot of tips.